people are really good at telling the difference between recognition that comes from like real attention and recognition that's just like a process running behind the scenes.
Welcome to the official CultureCon podcast, where we explore how work actually works.
We're your hosts, Zach Blumenfeld
and Nick Lombardino.
Whether you're leading a team, shaping culture, or just passionate about making work more meaningful, you're in the right place.
Each episode will bring you stories, insights, and bold ideas from people who are building better workplaces and better work experiences.
The official CultureCon podcast starts now. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CultureCon podcast. Today, we're joined by Nick Phillips, the Senior Director of Sales at Brilliant. Nick has had a fascinating journey. He spent most of his professional life helping growth stage companies scale, from being one of the earliest employees at a startup called Doggy Loot to working at Narrative Science before its acquisition by Salesforce, to helping now lead growth at Brilliant today. Along the way, he's worn hats in operations, account management, business development, and sales leadership. What really caught our attention, though, is that underneath all of those experiences is a consistent thread, helping organizations build stronger relationships. Nick spends a lot of time thinking about what makes people feel valued, whether that's employees, customers, or partners. Nick, we're excited to have you here today. You know, they said that this podcast wasn't big enough for two Nicks, but here we are to prove them wrong. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Welcome, Nick. All right, I got to start out with this. It kind of feels like a rapid fire question, but I'm eager to learn. What's the most memorable gift you have ever received and why?
Okay. Well, I'm going to avoid the personal gifting sob story for this podcast, and I will tie it to my career, and it's going to be something that I think you guys aren't thinking about. But when I really thought about it, my most memorable gifts are the ones that really weren't that special at first. So, like the classic new hire kit, mug, backpack, t-shirt, pin, stickers. I still have 2 t-shirts from Doggy Loot from 2011. I use my Narrative Science coffee mug from 2016 every single week. And when I travel for work now for Brilliant, I got this pin that was in my new hire kit that I rock on my blazer for every single client meeting. Now, the funny part is the logos and all this stuff changed within a couple of years of me getting it. And none of it was particularly special when I first opened the box. But as the items aged and as I've aged, it's all picked up meaning for me. So, the Brilliant Pin, I'm reminded that I was employee 15 and we're at 150 people now. So, like, the gift didn't start out meaningful, but it became meaningful because it's tied to the work that I put in. And you can't really manufacture that, at the moment they hand you a box. Kind of just happens with time. If you want the sob story, I'll tell you the sob story, but it's just these like simple gifts that you get when you first start, and it's like mementos that build value over time.
I'd have to think too that those mementos, as time goes on, it's like not only the nostalgia of it, but just like there's so many stories baked into that artifact. Same as you. Zach, I know you have it because I've seen you wear them over the years, but like I still rock t-shirts from companies that I was an early employee of. And even though I know nobody knows what those companies are, to me, it's like the nostalgia value of having it on and kind of wearing it as like a jersey, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I still have like t-shirts from startups that aren't even in existence anymore, but they're just like, it was a special time in my life and it holds that special meaning. Or like even on my desk, I have like 3 or 4 things. Like I have my Stanley mug from Fine Point Consulting and Zach Miller that I got for the holidays a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's those little things that kind of stick with you. And I think a lot of organizations, like they care about their people, but that employee recognition can still feel like it's forced or transactional. And I'm curious from your perspective, being in this business, like what's the difference between appreciation, like you're talking about, that people remember, and then appreciation that feels transactional and just is forgotten?
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, it's all about caring. Like the word caring comes up for me If I were to go interview for a new job right now and they're like, "Oh, what makes you special personally at the companies and organizations you've worked for?" It's like I care deeply about the work I put in, and that's showing up every day and caring and being intentional. But the reason I bring that up, and the reason I think that matters for recognition, is that people are really good at telling the difference between recognition that comes from like real attention and recognition that's just like a process running behind the scenes. And the forced transactional kind of recognition is bad because there's no actual care behind it, and people can smell that instantly. We've all gotten like the great work this quarter team, that went out to everyone, and that's not recognition. That's just a status update. So the test I use, in my day to day is if you could swap someone else's name into it and the praise still works, it wasn't recognition. Great job works for anybody. So, when in my day to day with my sales team, when I'm getting feedback in Gong or Slack or over email, it's always something hyper specific. It's always something, about that interaction they had with the client or something they did internally that's innovative. And that's the kind that sticks, right? Because it proves you saw the actual thing they did, not just, a number on a dashboard that you're calling out to everyone.
And since you've worked with companies of all shapes and sizes, oftentimes being, an early employee, what's one thing that you've identified that leaders kind of underestimate about building that caring environment that you're describing, building that loyalty, building that trust?
Yeah. Well, if you've ever been an individual contributor, I think you understand that there's sort of this like whole ecosystem of individual contributors that are running a few layers below leadership. And I think leadership can tend to run on this like filtered version of reality on how employees feel about the company and their work and the value that they're putting in. Um, and you can send out the all employee survey and get feedback, but I don't think that always gets the real picture. So the way that I, earn loyalty and trust with my employees, the way that I've seen management earn loyalty and trust with me, is they get close to the work that I'm doing. I get close to the work that my employees are doing. And, people only tell you the real thing once they believe that you actually will go to bat for them and that you'll tell them the truth in return. Provide transparency. Trust is always a two-way exchange. So I earn loyalty and trust by advocating for people and by being straight with them and asking them to be straight with me.
That's awesome. And Nick and I know Brilliant pretty well and all the awesome things that you guys do, but I'm curious if you could share a little bit just about the organization since you've been with the company since the early days. Some of our listeners may not be familiar, so let's enlighten them on how
Yeah.
brilliant is.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Little founder story. So Millie Tattlewalt, she's our CEO and founder. She started the company back in 2015. Classic, like got a horrible gift in the mail, destined for the landfill. And yeah, she's got her JD from Harvard. She's started, three other companies before Brilliant. She was like, "Oh man, like I'm gonna do something with this." And so she started out of her garage, and it was another promotional products company that she started. And this is a like archaic, old school industry, right? Promo has been around for like decades and decades. And when you think of it, you think of tchotchkes, trinkets, like stress balls, mop topper pens, and stuff that ends up in the landfill. And so when she founded the company, it was really based on a couple core principles. Like the gift has got to be good, right? Like a high quality, intentional gift. And that's not just the product itself, the physical product, but it's like the way you design and decorate the product, right? And the way you place that logo. And it's not just like slap a logo on it and get it out the door. I'll give you an example. Like, Robinhood is one of our clients, and we produced a hat for them. And instead of it, just being a Robin Hood logo on the front of the hat, it says market cap, right? It's a play on words. And there's like a subtle Robin Hood brand on the back of the hat. They have a like finance bro vest. And on the chest, it says invest. Um,
That's really
they've
good.
they've got a Nalgene that they sell, that we produced and design and decorate and warehouse and ship out for them, that says liquid assets on the Nalgene, instead of Robinhood, right? So it's like there's intentionality behind a lot of the gifting that we do with our clients, which I think separates us. And that was part of Millie's vision. The other two parts being like uh, technology. Everyone's running off of spreadsheets in the promo industry. It's like spreadsheets, no inventory dashboards, and so you got to have technology that makes gift sending and gift management easy, but also like a delight for gift recipients to claim a gift. And then warehousing. All these people in this industry that we compete with are using 3PLs, and we own and operate our own warehouse. So we got competitors like picking and packing like sofas and dog treats and, whatever you can imagine in a 3PL. And we've got brilliant employees just picking and packing, branded merch and swag. And that box that they're packing is going to a new hire, going to someone celebrating their 10-year anniversary, a prospecting gift that's being sent out from one of our clients to someone that they're trying to get on the phone, right? That like last piece of the process to get a gift out the door. It's like very important. It's actually very important that it is owned and operated by the company of record, right? And so she's just built like a really strong foundation that has just helped us scale over the years. So yeah, that was 2015. Got 150 employees now. We've grown year over year, every single year, no layoffs, and just doing like really, really cool things with super brand forward companies.
That's
It's
amazing.
amazing.
I have to ask, so of these, let's just call them traditional celebratory milestones, an employee has a birthday, they have a big anniversary. What are some new ones that have been popping up that you think are kind of creative on like a kind of a trigger to send a thoughtful celebratory gift to a teammate?
Yeah, I think there's those are the big ones, right? New hire kits and then anniversaries. Then there's birthdays that come in at third. And then we've got paternity, maternity, like expecting parents. And then what we see is some like seasonal gifting throughout the year, which is, I guess, somewhat new, but maybe not. Pride, right? It's Pride Month right now in the month of June. We do a ton of Pride gifting for a lot of our clients. We just did a huge event for Serve Robotics, which is those robots you see driving around that always get in your way on the sidewalks. But they did a big event in San Francisco, and we did a huge Pride drop for them. And another big one for us is working with employee resource groups at organizations, ERGs. And so when an employee resource group, that's focused around pride or women approaches us and says, hey, we want to do a gift for, our employees or our team, we can actually go into our, manufacturers and suppliers in our system and be like, who are the women-owned suppliers? Who are the suppliers that align with, LGBTQ values, right? And we just show them those products as options that they could potentially purchase through with us. And then when we source those items for the clients and we, pick and pack some gift boxes in the warehouse and inevitably end up sending them out to recipients, there might be a note card in there that calls out that each product in here has been manufactured by X, Y, and Z. So there's all sorts of intentionality behind that. So yeah, ERGs, employee resource groups, is another big one for internal employee gifting.
Yeah, a big part of this podcast and what, is on all of our minds, artificial intelligence, right? And so it feels like we're moving into a world where there's going to be more communication and content and even customer interactions that are going to be automated in some way, shape, or form. So, do you think thoughtful human gestures are going to become even more important in this world of AI as things just become more and more automated and we have more and more kind of digital stimulus being thrown at us?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. It's going to be way more important, or at least that's the bet I'm placing. AI's been great for me and my team. Like it's made communication and follow up, more effortless, and it's automated a lot of rote tasks internally. But in terms of communication, I think the value of genuine effort like goes way up, not down, because like effort and human connection is now the scarce thing that everyone's looking for. Everyone's inbox is full of like perfectly written nothing by AI, and every company's doing it. So, what cuts through isn't like more polished to that and more AI. It's, you know, evidence that actual human time was spent on the thing. So for us, what I'm doing with my sales team, what I've done in 2026 is like handwritten note cards, hyper personalized gift based on something you learned about the person on the call you're on, showing up at their office, donut drops, hosting dinners. And like, don't get me wrong, we're still cold calling, we're still cold emailing, we're still sending LinkedIn messages, and AI's made all that faster. And that's the point. I automate everything I can, but that automation then allows my team to figure out, okay, what are the actual real human connection points that we need to like double down on. So yeah, AI is not replacing the human gesture. I think it just makes the human gesture that much more important.
Yeah, I love that. And I heard someone say recently, I really like this. They said, human connection is the new currency. And it sounds like your team is doing just that in a world that's kind of overrun with technology and AI taking over everything. I think those human connection moments really stick out. And I'm also curious, like, you've been with the company for so long and you've seen it grow, I guess, 10x in headcount. And I'm sure the culture has grown as well as you scaled your company. What's something that organizations misunderstand about that human connection in the workplace?
Yeah. So at Brilliant, it's interesting because like we've had the benefit of being founded as a fully remote company. So there was never this like, oh, go back into office or hybrid environment. So really the culture was built around remote, which is great. And I think people, new hires get like scared about like, oh, what does it mean? I'm coming from working in the office every single day, and now it's gonna be fully remote. But we have a lot of things built in that make that, human connection, staying connected, still a big part of what we do. But to your question, I think that some orgs can find themselves in this place of like trying to schedule human connection, right? Like the happy hour, the offsite, the kickoff, and those aren't bad necessarily, but if they're not built with care and intention, then they turn into like, hey, humans, like connect with other humans and please have fun with each other, like on cue, right? And so I think real connection is something like you make room for. It's not something you put on the calendar. In my world, in my one-on-ones and team meetings, I have fun and play and stories and celebration kind of woven into them. I let the human stuff kind of live inside the actual work. And, people take their cue from their leaders. So if you never let on that you have things going on outside of work, nobody on your team will either. So I'm a little vulnerable with my manager. I'm vulnerable with my direct reports. Maybe sometimes a little, TMI, but it lands on like, oh, this guy's a real human that I, want to connect with. And in addition to that, yeah, I get my team together, right? As we already talked about the human connection portion of this, connecting with clients and prospects. But for my team, quarterly kickoffs in person, going to the warehouse, in Waukegan, just north of Chicago, randomly as a group, annual retreat, client visits, trade shows whenever budget allows.
That's great. So, not to make this overly personal, but we do like kind of getting into the personal stories and reflections. So, in recognition that you've had a diverse career and you even, I mean, you studied biopsychology. Here you are, now you're in sales. You're helping organizations think about relationships and connection and appreciation. If college age Nick could see what you're doing today, what would surprise him the most?
If college age Nick could see Nick today, I think he would just be surprised that he has a job. Um, I was not the most studious employee. I think the biopsych degree title looks pretty impressive, but kind of skated by there in college and was a bit rudderless in terms of direction and what I was doing. So I think he'd be like, wow, like way to crush it, dude. That is freaking awesome. How the heck did you get there? Because what I'm doing right now does not seem like I'm setting myself up for that type of like trajectory. So that's the truth.
We can all relate to that in some way, shape, or form. That's great.
All right. We like to end every episode the same way by allowing our guests to kind of give a personal shout out, someone that may have been a mentor along the way in their career path. We've had people shout out their third grade teachers to bosses they've had. So want to give you that opportunity to give someone a shout out on the CultureCon podcast.
Yeah, I'll give Millie a shout out. Talking about my career and coming out of college, not knowing what the heck I was doing with myself. I was 22 years old, just graduated, and I applied for an internship at a venture capital firm in Chicago on the West Loop called Sandbox Industries. And Millie was an MD. She was a managing director there. And they had an, open internship. I think it was like unpaid. And I went into the interview. I still remember the room I sat down in, and Millie was across the table from me interviewing me. She's like, what interests you most about like working for this VC firm where we're incubating all these startup companies? And I didn't know anything. I think I remember being like, I'm very interested in social media, which was not the right answer, but I was able to like open up and have fun with it and be silly and goofy and whatever. And Millie's that type of personality too. And so she's like, okay, let's give this guy a shot. And, we'll give him the internship. And so Millie's like the first person who took a chance on me in my career. And I ended up working for that VC firm, working for Sandbox Industries, which invested in Doggy Loot, which I worked at for 3 or 4 years. And, had the pleasure of working alongside her and learning from her through those years. And then we went our separate ways for, 8 years or so, 10 years. And then I commented on her Instagram one day, and then it turned into her saying, hey, you should come work for me. And I was like, okay, I'll come work for you. And then I ended up here. So like she's just been like a big part of my career and my life. So big shout out to Millie.
Shout out Millie. What a story. That's great. Like full circle moment throughout your entire career. That's awesome. Well, cool. Nick, thank you so much for being here. This was an awesome conversation. Thanks for helping us think a little differently also about like recognition, appreciation, and, human connection in general. So we appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Nick. We look forward to introducing you to Madison and the brilliant teammates, right? Just in a few short months. So good to chat with you. We'll see you soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of the official CultureCon podcast.
If you got something out of it, share it with a friend, a teammate, or a fellow culture geek.
And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And if you want more ways to stay connected and inspired, check out our upcoming events page for a full listing of webinars, workshops, and conferences.
You'll find the link in the show notes, and we'd love to welcome you to a CultureCon event soon.
Until next time,